AEW?
Why don't we talk about AEW Dynamite this past week, or last night as we are recording, the 20th of December. We're going to do it here on the Drive-Thru, this being the last show of the last new show, full show of the year.
Well, we are, and I'm trying to find, here it is, right here. I got the pad or the notes right here, right next to my heart. You're not a string bean fan, are you?
I'm not a hee-haw fan, if no other reason, I haven't seen too much of it, but I know the story of String Bean. It's a crazy story.
Well, I didn't mean to delve into homicide and
well, as soon as you bring
murder.
it up,
I just,
where's your mind going to go? You bring up String Bean, you bring up his saying, and then he got murdered.
All the great entertainment, the many laughs and good times that he gave people through his career on radio and television until he was savagely slaughtered in his own home along with his wife by robbers looking for cash that wasn't there. But now let's talk about AEW.
Jeez, on that note, let's go to Dynamite.
On December the 20th, and they opened right up, boy, with another one of these tournament matches, and they hopped right into the entrances, and they got the bell rang 3 minutes into the show. You got to give them credit for that. They don't waste time. This is not the WWE. Over there, they have huge box office stars that come to the ring instead of fucking your just regular old mope face fucking fella. But it takes them 12 to 15 minutes to do it, as we know. Here, they're right in there. And it was Swerve, Strickland, and Rush. It was two more heels, but at least Swerve is so popular, he's more popular than most all the baby faces, that it had a baby face versus heel dynamic. But we ought to look at who's in this tournament. If you can get any of that information, does he have like fucking 2 baby faces and 10 heels in this whole goddamn thing? Every match is a heel versus heel match.
Or a babyface versus babyface match, depending on how you see the two ambiguous wrestlers.
Well, I'm not talking about their sexual preferences. There's no reason to bring ambiguousness into this.
Had nothing to do with sexual preferences. Ambiguity in terms of what side they're on.
If you were ambiguous, you were only in favor of the bigger organs.
I don't think that's how it works. Maybe you remember the ambiguously gay duo from Saturday Night Live, and that's making you associate the word ambiguous necessarily with sexuality. I don't know. Did you like those superheroes?
Well, no, I thought it was talking. Well, nevertheless.
But Swerve is a heel and the face, and I think you could say the same for
No, he's
Roosh
not. He's a baby face because the people cheer him. He just does heel things, which confuses the issue. But you're not a heel if the people cheer you. That's the problem with the whole company. The heels are more popular than the baby faces because at least the heels get to do phony shit that looks cool. Like breaking cinder blocks over people's fucking flesh and blood skulls, or invading the little baby carriage, or whatever the fuck is going on around here that at least entertains these people because everybody's so boring and interchangeable otherwise. But nevertheless, they had another fucking match, and that's what they have. They have another fucking match. Rush is another guy who does wrestling moves well and has shitty matches that make no sense. And Swerve, as we've seen, it varies with the opponent, but at least he has personality. And they did the modern match with the dives and the flips and the moves back and forth, and they fought on the floor for quite a while. And nobody worked like a babyface, nobody worked like a heel. They just did shit, and that gets old really quick, but they kept on. Anyway, and Rush was selling his leg to the point where he would try to walk across the ring and his leg would go out on him and he'd almost collapse. And a couple seconds later, he's doing goddamn handsprings or whatever. And then Rush gave Swerve that trapped arm pile driver that, remember, a week or two ago, Moxley, he tried to give it to Moxley and Moxley said, fuck you, and kicked his legs out and sandbagged him.
It did stop, drop, and roll.
Well, yeah, and the reason why apparently is because Swerve went for this and Rush dropped him sideways and half lost him on the way down. And I'm not sideways, neck sideways. This guy is a complete idiot the more I see of him. And then Swerve gave Rush a 450 splash off the top and covered him, and Rush kicked out at 1 and bolted, bolt upright, as Mama Cornette used to say, to his feet and beat Swerve up to his feet. I'm like, Danny Spivey beat a motherfucker's ass for shit like that. And they worked it in apparently as an agreed upon part of the fucking presentation here. And suddenly, Swerve face planted him, hit a brainbuster, got a 2 count, kicked him in the head, went to the top, took about 15 seconds, where the guy had to sit there dumbfounded, then did the double stomp and covered him 1, 2, 3. So after all that, 20 minutes in, he just beat him flat. Not saying that he shouldn't have beat him, but, who does these finishes? Anyway, they just do shit till they run out of shit to do. What were your thoughts on this contest there, my fellow Brian?
I'm the only Brian here. I'm not your fellow Brian. You are not a Brian. But as the lone Brian
Well, you're my
here,
good fellow.
Yes?
Yes, my good fellow Brian. I put a comma in there, but you didn't hear.
All right, well, my good fellow Jim. As a Jim, I think this match was, it was all right. I'm not into too many of the matches. I mean, shouldn't say not into it. It needs to be something more than a tournament match where I think I know who's going to win to get me into the back and forth match. I did think Roosh did a good job of selling until he jumped up, like you said, after the move. Nothing. He hulked up in the way that fans used to hate Hulk Hogan doing it. He did it just in less time. And
there was another part where he's flipping everybody the double bird. And when you talk about he was selling, 1 minute he's selling his leg like it's goddamn the end of the world, and the next minute he's normal until he needs to sell it again.
Until the referee whispered, "Moxley's selling his leg tonight. Stop." But Swerve is super over. I think the bigger story here is the reaction Swerve got coming out there, the reaction Nana got coming out there.
And by the end of the show, they're gonna fuck that up too.
Well, he's super over, and he has I have to get the points pulled up here. I think he has 9 points.
Well, that's the thing. Basically, they come down in this program. Where have I got this written down here? In unintelligible fucking. Basically, they created a situation where by the end of the show, and we'll get there, that if Moxley either beat Jay White or drew with Jay White, then we would get Swerve versus Moxley as the final match, where then that'd be great. Then Swerve could Moxley could put Swerve over, do the right thing for business. Swerve would win the fucking thing, and it might stand a chance of getting Swerve over. But if Jay White wins over Moxley later on tonight, then it's a 3-way final because they're all tied with points, which is horseshit because now you know the finish because Tony Khan is going to fuck the final up that might get Swerve over by beating Moxley to have some fakakta 3-way where nobody gets over and it's just a meaningless mark match. So we knew automatically after this first thing what the fuck was going to go on later on, didn't we? Couldn't everybody call it then?
I think we knew based on them showing us and telling us that stipulation right away what it was going to happen. I think Kingston's going to win this thing. I think they're going to do something sneaky like have Kingston come back at the points.
It's not possible.
And the big dramatic moment where he goes over in the tournament final.
How is that going to happen? It is possible.
Eddie Kingston right now has 6 points with 1 match to go. Also in the Blue League with 6 points is Brody King and Claudio. With 9 points is Andrade and Danielson. Danielson's wrestling Claudio. So if Claudio beats Danielson, Danielson stays at 9, Claudio gets 9. Brody King is wrestling Garcia, who has 0 points. Daniel Garcia.
My God,
so he beats him, he gets 9 points. And then if Eddie, who's he wrestling here? If Eddie beats Andrade El Idolo, he would have 9, and Andrade would stay at 9. You'd have 4 people at 9. Maybe we get a 4-way here, and a 3-way in the Golden. What a great tournament this has been, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at here. Hold on. Let me put something up closer to my head.
No. That's not even funny. Don't do that. Don't do
So then, We'll talk more about the tournament later on.
I'm looking at the fucking point system here, too. Didn't they also have, like, you would get, like, 1 point if you won by something else? No one has anything but 0 or 3.
Or multiples of 3, yeah.
Yeah, everything's just a 0 and a 3 everywhere.
So, Chris Jericho made a heartfelt speech about his brother in arms, his partner, Kenny Olivier. Jericho was very humble here and sympathetic and concerned, and I've said it a million times, sincerity is the key. When you learn to fake that, you've got it made. And it looked like behind his eyes, he was saying, oh, thank God I got that putz off my back. Now I can go suck somebody's charisma that's over. But the Golden Jets will reform someday after Kenny is finished, he says, defeating his newest opponent, diverticulitis. What did you think about the sincerity or veracity or lack thereof of this statement from Jay? Wasn't it so nice that it couldn't be that you just couldn't buy it? It was too nice.
No, I disagree with you. I think this is the best acting Jericho's ever done. I thought he did a great job here with this.
Of acting?
Well, yeah, I thought he did a great job. The fans got quiet and listened and applauded respectfully at the right times. That means Jericho got the right reaction. And I guess...
Did he mean it?
I guess in the week since Kenny got injured, Tony didn't find a different thing to have Jericho do, so this was the best solution. Just go out there and give us in the back, give a speech. When did he record that? Was it that day and he just wasn't on Dynamite? Or did he record that speech? No, he was reacting to the crowd, wasn't he? It must have been there.
Yes, he had to. He just... There was no need for him to go out, walk all that way out to the ring and be seen by the live crowd. And that way also, you know, he could get to the parking lot quicker.
You know what the wrestlers call AEW?
I'm waiting.
Hey, free hotel room.
In his case, hopefully they get him a suite of rooms with soundproof walls. He tends to, sometimes he has issues with his neighboring surrounding. Anyway.
Why don't you do some of those skits you like? You can go to Kenny's bedside and sing to him.
God, does he want to kill him? Lord. Anyway, then we came to another tournament match, and I watched this one, and you knew I would, because it was Mark Briscoe against Jay Lethal. Neither one of these guys have a fucking point at this point. They are completely winless. They can't mathematically win the tournament, but they're going to go out there and have a fucking match. And by the way, they had their first transmission issue, I believe, at this point. I think it was the first one that I noticed right at the start of this match. A couple or three places in the course of the program, the audio and video went to black, but the bugs were still on the screen. The TBS bug and the AEW bug, that was coming from TBS's transmission. So the problem with the program going out was between the point of origin, the live event, and their transmission to TBS. And the announcers didn't say anything about it. It wasn't part of the devil thing. They just went black and silent for 15 seconds at a time.
Yeah, that's the problem. The bug still being there. My first thought was, oh, the devil's at it again. And then, oh, the House of Black's at it again. And the fans are as silent as they are every time they turn out the lights when the House of Black come out. No, the show just more weird AEW production issues.
Yeah,
several times.
They got a crimp in the wire. The cable was, somebody stepped on the cable. But anyway, Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal, let me just go on a soapbox for a second. I understand Jay Lethal, when we're comparing about who should win this tournament or who, you know, is featured in the tournament, Lethal is a superior worker than Swerve Strickland because he's got more experience and he's a better logical worker. And both of them can talk. But I can see using Swerve, pushing Swerve ahead because he doesn't have the baggage of being booked rotten and used underneath in TNA like Jay does. And he hasn't been booked as badly and as rotten in AEW as Jay Lethal has, right? So I can see that. And I'm not trying to just say, oh, Jay Lethal ought to be the winner.
I personally believe Swerve has more of a star. He seems more like a star than Jay Lethal was.
Well, he's newer and he's fresher, and you know, poor Jay, he never, you know, got the opportunities that he should have at the big company. But nevertheless, can you explain to me why fucking Rush is in any way being pushed ahead of a unique talent like Mark Briscoe, who is so far superior to Rush in every aspect of the business? It's not even a contest in any category. It's just a criminal waste. And I can think of another couple people in the fucking tournament that instead of Mark Briscoe, this could have been a vehicle for Mark Briscoe if they hadn't dropped the ball so bad and fucking botched him. The people like him. They want to like him more. They wanted to like him even more than that. And he's better at everything. He's got a personality and a gimmick, and he can work and he can talk. And he's got appeal. And Jay fucking White put half the effort into Mark Briscoe they put into that fucking bowl of oatmeal. Jesus Christ. So anyway, I watched this match. I'll give a few high points. It, for once on this program, looked like two guys struggling for something instead of just performing together and not bothering to hide it. They wrestled a little because they know how, and they slowed it down at the beginning so that they could establish who the babyface and heel was. When they traded chops, it was hard, and without standing there and pointing at their chest for the other guy to do it, the other guy would take over. They still did some modern shit with Mark doing the Cactus Jack elbow off the apron of the floor and blah, blah, blah. But they looked like grown men and athletes doing shit, not in cooperation with, but in struggle with the other guy. And then they did the flips too. Mark did the drop kick through the ropes and then brought the chair in, set the chair up, and jumped off it and cannonballed over the top rope and leveled fucking Lethal and got a big pop. And then jumps up and grabs the hat off the fan in the front row and wears it and makes his face, because that works for Mark Briscoe, because he's a world-class gimmick. And they love that. And then they got some 2 counts, including the "this is awesome" chance for wrestling moves that weren't dangerous but made sense. And then finally Mark hit the Jay Driller in honor of his brother Jay, 1, 2, 3, and the fans jumped up and gave him a standing ovation. It was the best match so far in the tournament, with 2 guys that were completely winless and had been booked like jobbers. And it got a better reaction than most of the matches in the tournament. And with no danger to anybody more than is necessary in this job. And without looking stupid, looking fake, or looking silly. And this was the 2 guys that couldn't possibly. And now Jay officially finishes the tournament with fuck idiots. What'd you think?
It was all right. I didn't pay that much attention.
Well, give me time to swallow then.
I mean, why should I? I mean, you knew Jay Lethal wasn't going to win, and you figured Mark Briscoe was going to win. You know, they needed someone to lose every match. They picked Jay Lethal. You kind of knew it based on who was in here and who were his favorites and who gets pushed. And Jay Lethal shouldn't, based on how he's been booked. So, wasn't surprised, but you put this on the show and it's a long competitive match. I'm sure it was great. But when you treat guys like jobbers on your show,
yeah,
I don't want to see Battle of the Jobbers.
And it's they've got so many other people on the roster that deserve to be jobbers that are being pushed ahead of these guys that could produce. Oh my God.
Like the Mark Briscoe thing, unless he requested, I don't want to be pushed the way some people want me to be pushed.
I don't think he asked that. I'm going to go out on a limb and bet the farm that he did not ask that.
But Mark Briscoe, there's been multiple missed opportunities. And I think someone like Jay Lethal and someone like Mark Briscoe, it's happened so often now, they've now been pigeonholed into where they're going to be. And I can't see them past that point. Jay Lethal did not have Jeff Jarrett and the whole clown show out there, but the damage has been done.
Damage has been done already. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, as they say. And all right, speaking of, I know, something to get the bad taste out of my mouth. Can you explain more succinctly than I can how the fuck that they managed to put Samoa Joe and MJF in the ring together to do a promo, the two best promos in the company, and it was really bad and really long?
You thought it was really bad?
They're doing a good job with total caca. I don't want to confuse people who can speak well and impart bad material in as verbose a way as possible with what did you like about this?
First of all, in general, just based on what you just said, I agree with the issues with the booking. And I think Joe and MJF, I like the dynamic. I like the interplay. The issue is the booking. The issue is the story. Them as like a weird combination, I like. The idea that I'm wrestling you, so I'm going to be your bodyguard until I wrestle you, not so much. The idea that the lights go out and the devil's friends are there, and this time, it wasn't just 4 of them. There were just
There's 16 of them.
Endless masked men. No one has stopped any of them. That's the bad shit.
When they reveal who the Black Scorpion, the devil is, are we also going to get the names of all 16 henchmen? Is there going to be 16 guys come in with him? How do we never find out?
Should Wardlow also become an MJF bodyguard? Because he wants to wrestle MJF and beat him. Should he defend him until he gets to that point?
Well, he's still probably going to be the devil.
But I thought MJF and Joe were good together. And I thought MJF was good. I think in a lot of ways, MJF's getting back to the MJF on the mic that worked better. Being a bit more dickish as opposed to just an outright babyface. But like I said, the problems with all of this, MJF and Joe themselves and their performances are not the problem.
See, here's it's context and it's the people also involved in what's going on. Samoa Joe's in the ring and the fans are already chanting, Joe, 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 because the company's so fucked up that the most popular baby faces are the heels. But Samoa Joe, and again, the WWE missed the boat big time. I wish maybe Joe's one that got caught in the transition over there. But he's a fantastic heel. He looks, sounds, appears, and comes off like he means business. And he's telling the story, why was everyone assaulted by the devil? We saw it, but when MJF was assaulted, he was found on the ground, and he called MJF out to answer questions. Are you the devil? And when MJF was coming out, I get the idea that the devil thing is going to be MJF's shark jump if they're not real careful. However, but MJF wasn't happy that Joe's accusing him of being the devil. And MJF says that Joe was supposed to protect me, and you're doing a shitty job, right? But here's the thing. MJF said some great things to Joe. He is getting more heelish or prickish or whatever that in that respect, but Joe's the wrong guy to be talking to in that fashion for that long, while Joe just has to stand there and smirk about it, for one thing. Secondly, when MJF says, well, the goons, they didn't lay a finger on you either, Joe, so I don't like you and I don't trust you, so why wait till December 30th for me to end your world? And he starts taking off all of his shit, and Joe's still standing. Why did MJF get that mad that quick? He goes from 0 to 60. Remember, he's done that a lot. When he's trying real hard to get something over, all of a sudden, he got real mad real quick. And then Joe is unfazed by all of this until MJF shoves him And then Joe gets pissed and gets up in his face. But then suddenly there, as you mentioned, comes the endless parade of goons. And Joe shoves MJF out of the way because he sees them coming from behind. The first 4 or 6 or 8, I think it was about 6 or 8, they hit the ring and Joe and MJF just chuck them back out on the floor and they all lay on the floor immobile. They get an aerial shot so you can see that they've been thrown to the floor out of the ring and they're dead. And then 4 more come over the rail and surround the ring. And then here comes maybe another 4 or whatever, and they're all surrounding the ring while the other ones are still laying there immobile. And then the lights go out. This is what I'm saying. You've got a great heel that is popular because the other baby faces are fucking bland, and he's a kick-ass. But he's being talked to by this guy that really physically, he should be fucking respecting him a bit more. He's being talked to like a goddamn pissant. But then suddenly this fake and phony and ridiculous angle takes over all the goddamn spotlight and oxygen. And then when the lights go out and the devil comes up on the screen and the words then flash up, where can you go? Who do you trust? And there's a challenge next week for an ROH tag team title match. We saw this before. And MJF accepted, and Joe was upset about it. And then MJF got laid out, and Joe fought off goons. Now they've done the same fucking thing. And when the lights come on, the goons are gone. The fans are silent, if not murmuring. And Joe accepts the challenge. And I wrote, this is so fucking bad. You can't mean to tell me that they wouldn't be better off promoting a singles world title match between Samoa Joe and MJF instead of this goddamn caca. Can you?
Well, I can certainly tell you that there's no reason to bring ROH back into this. We need to admit it. It's sad, but ROH is dead.
They're gone.
It's just another belt on this show, and it's another taping where Tony can pretend he's a booker. But here we are again, MJF and Samoa Joe. It's like 1 step forward, 2 or 3 steps back. They have their match coming up at the pay-per-view. Again, I said it the other day, I don't think this devil thing is anywhere near done, which is scary.
They probably still got to find one.
I would hope they have that figured out. And worst case scenario, it could be Tony. But I think MJF's work itself has been better the last few weeks, and I actually think I got sick of him and Adam Cole, and I know a lot of people loved it. But I like him and Joe together.
Well, we're not done with MJF now, though, in the program. There's going to be more later on, and you still feel the same way?
I thought that was an all right segment that went on for a while. See, the problem is a lot of these things are good, but they're good in like 90-second increments. Unfortunately, they go on for...
It's good when you fuck the love of your life and you come.
In 90-second increments, yes.
And then you keep fucking for another 25 minutes, and it's, oh my God, now it's like, please give me oxygen.
Well,
do
Jim,
you do that?
I don't do that, but they say love comes in spurts. What does AEW come in?
Well, it comes in bits and pieces. And... the next match was and folks, we don't have the ratings yet. This was just last night. It's still early in the day after, and we're cranking this stuff out for the holidays. So we don't have the ratings, but we predict that right here is where a cataclysm happened of epic proportions to send the Nielsen families into a tailspin. It was a match where the winner gets a title shot against Tony Storm with Saraya versus Riho. Brian, how much did they sign the former Paige for her to be the star of the women's division, who came in with incredible fanfare, if not trumpets and drum beats and I don't know what, cowbell, whatever else, and they built a group around her And it was a game changer, and now she's on free television putting over Riho. Tony, just set fire to the money. It's quicker.
Well, to be fair, Tony gave her a lot of money, but he was also negotiating against WWE, who were offering nothing.
Well, speaking of offering nothing, I feel bad for Saraya, and I don't even like her. But here, this not only was ridiculous, it's a joke. It's a joke. I'm sorry, it's a joke. Riho is not a wrestler. She's a fucking special interest of Kenny's. And there's some mass hypnosis going on that everybody else in this company just tolerates this, but it's embarrassing. But now it's dangerous. Because what did Paige retire from the wrestling business from? And was told that she could be potentially paralyzed or lose the use of her extremities. What was that injury, Brian?
Well, her name is Saraya now, but I believe that was a broken neck.
Yeah, well, did you see the spot where she actually let this 4'9", 89-pound, mousy little thing give her a belly-to-belly overhead Northern Lights suplex with a bridge and almost land her right on top of her head, a la the Ridge Holland Big E incident of about a year ago?
Yeah, I watched this match twice.
Why would you go for somebody that much smaller than you? It doesn't even mathematically make sense that she can be turned properly or taken over properly, and she almost put her right on her fucking head. The crowd oohed. It was so close, it was obvious, without even Taz, who really saw what happened, almost having a shit fit in his voice. And then, after she does that, Riho just pushed her with one hand, and Saraya rolled a turn toward the corner to get into the right spot, and then put her arms in between her legs, tucked herself, and stayed stock still, muttering a silent prayer without moving a muscle or even a hair, as Riho went up to the top rope and gave her a double stomp off the top rope. And then didn't cover her. Saraya then sits straight up, just does a sit-up, and scoots on her ass into position, obviously for Riho to give her a running knee, and then Riho covers her 1, 2, 3. So not only was it embarrassing to watch if you care about the wrestling industry, or embarrassing if you care about Saraya, but Saraya was embarrassed and was just going through the motions trying to get it over with without letting this fucking little goof hurt her. It was that obvious. Go back and watch before that double stomp off the top and watch her just roll there, move her hair out of her eyes, and tuck and fucking brace. Good God. And then Riho beat up Toni Storm too when she got in, until Mariah May came and saved Toni, and Riho was left standing in the ring like she was Hacksaw Duggan with a 2x4 instead of fucking Riho in an ill-fitting tutu. You watched it twice. What did I miss there?
I did. I really dig her style. Her lace dicky is always on point.
I didn't realize that she had ever been a sampler of Dickies.
The match was so bad I had to watch it a second time just to see how bad it was. It was one of those things. Saraya's limited because of everything that's happened. Her biggest benefit, I guess, would be her personality. And you had her in there with Riho. And if you really stop and you can stop drinking the Kool-Aid and watch her, her stuff looks bad. It's the ultimate in a cooperative match, because otherwise it doesn't exist.
Right.
And her stuff just doesn't look good. It's the epitome of someone who can copy the moves they see on TV and kick out. Like I said before, if you can just get that shoulder up at 2.5, you're halfway to being on AEW TV. That's all it takes to get at least a 3-star match. Just kick out a few times. Other than that, it's ridiculous. And I see other people say, well, Jim doesn't say this about, yeah, Jim says it about everyone who's small. And some of them I disagree with, because I think sometimes the right small person, it works. With Rio, it doesn't. She's ridiculous. And she's smaller than everyone there. And she gets a renewed push every couple of years. I don't know if this is where the ratings are going to die. It may die during Jay Lethal versus Mark Briscoe because of how they've been used.
No, it'll go down there, but it'll drop off a cliff on this one because that was early enough in the program. They could still think, well, we might see something.
What is that? They put Rio at the 9 o'clock hour 2 weeks in a row. And she didn't do anything special last week at the 9 o'clock
that's
hour.
right. I didn't even mention that this was also the 9 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
Because somebody is delusional and Tony is too nice to not put up with it. I don't know how else to explain it. There, I'm sure, are a number of people in the locker room who realize full well and are insulted by the fact that Riho is on this television program. But they can't say so because of whichever EVPs and Tony himself, who are convinced that this is something that's ever going to happen in this fucking country.
I've been consistent going back to the beginning of AEW, so I'm going to say it again here. Other than the fact that WWE had one, which started because of the Divas, and then TNA started one, and obviously Japan's been doing their own thing. When AEW started, it was automatic. They need a women's division. Even though there weren't the talented independent women out there for them to sign and bring in right away. And there were some fans that are just over the moon about anything with women's wrestling and are very forgiving and were really excited about this and still think the problem with the women's division is that Tony's not featuring them enough.
Oh, good Lord.
Tony should have never had a women's division. Tony should have said to Kenny and anyone else, I like women's wrestling. I'd like to support them however I can. It would benefit me not to have that division on my show. And it's getting worse and worse. WWE has the top flight women. Jamie Hayter's great, but we'll see if we ever see her again on this show.
Yeah.
But there's no reason for AEW to even have a women's division.
When she gets Statlander, when she's well, she gets a match every once in a while, and then she's relegated to standing there next to these jack-off outlaw mud show goofs like Trent and Chuck and Festus.
And working with Rihos. I mean, that's the other, if she was
working with Rihos.
If Statlander was in WWE, whether it was in NXT or on the main roster, again, with some exceptions, Liv Morgan's not one of the bigger acts, and I think Alexa Bliss, when she's there, is even smaller than her. She's probably the smallest and most ridiculous in terms of size, but she'll be working with Rhea Ripley's and Bianca Belair's and Charlotte's, people that are bigger. Of course, there's Sasha Banks's and Becky Lynch's and other people, but in AEW, look at who she's working, look at who is there. There are some people with talent that should be in NXT, like a Julia Hart, maybe even a Sky Blue. There are other people that just aren't very good. I'm not going to even name them right now, but there's some women there.
Abaddon.
I'm not even thinking of Abaddon, but there are some women there that are just terrible. You know,
when you're a kid and you get the Halloween candy and they put it in the pumpkin with the handle on it that everybody carried the Halloween candy in, and then you leave it set out on the porch and you live in a warmer climate, and after a couple of days you come back and you see the goddamn those fucking marshmallow treats. They ain't looking so good anymore because that sun that was beating down on them on the porch, that's Abaddon.
Well, that wasn't even my example. My point is, this women's division is horrible. The answer to fix it isn't more of it. I'll just say that.
Well, speaking of what we don't want to see any more of, Tony Schiavone read a statement from Christian Cage. So Cage and Edge weren't even on this program. And Tony just stood up on the stage and read a statement like I have to read this. And he started with comedy about what Christian said about his fucking Tony's yellow teeth. And I skipped the rest of it because I didn't give a shit, except we must mention that Tony is standing on the stage in front of a fucking Christmas tree with no ornaments on it.
I knew it.
There's no tinsel, there's no ornaments, there's no lights. It's just like a goddamn pine tree. It's like the tree was just growing there in the wild and they didn't want to disturb it when they built the stage. What the fuck was that about?
Did someone bring a Christmas tree? No, we have a fern. I don't know what that was about.
Can we just stand Tony in front of the cedar?
The whole thing was awful. Why is Shivani reading a statement from Christian Cage?
Because he didn't want to come to work that close to Christmas.
Yeah, remember Adam Copeland a few weeks ago? He's going to be on this show every week. He's going to be there every week. Yeah, a few weeks later, he's not on TV, so I don't know about that. But Shivani's reactions to everything, this was hokey and bad, like most Christian Cage things seem to devolve into. Not good. And it followed that awful women's match.
And then, I foreshadowed this earlier. MJF and Joe were arguing with each other in the back when MJF walked off on him. And he's walking down the hall and he sees one of the goons, Devil's Goons ski masks on the floor outside a locker room door. And he looks up and on the locker room it says the Mogul Embassy. They're still moguls, even though, what was that fat guy that said motherfucker? What was his name?
Well, Rick Ross, a famous rapper.
Okay, well, Rick Ross, he was the mogul. Well, he hadn't been seen since. We got Nana's Embassy, but anyway, so the mask is laying there right outside the door. So MJF knocks on the door. Nana opens the door. MJF jacks Nana up against the wall. Swerve comes out, and MJF lets Nana go. And now things are already tense, right? So then MJF and Swerve proceed to talk to each other in WWE style smartass little zingers and backhanded statements back and forth for a long, long time. And the one thing you remember MJF may have said, he said, well, the thing is there's levels to this shit and you're not on mine. Where did we just hear that? They're stealing, MJF is stealing now from the WWE show? They just said that last week. And here's my bottom line on this. They finally got me to fast forward an MJF promo. I couldn't take this. It wouldn't stop. And it was too insincere and phony. And this is not, MJF is always witty and sharp and quick, and he doesn't mumble his words, and he delivers the zingers, but no, this whole thing is going down the fucking toilet, in my opinion. I'm sorry.
It was intriguing, the idea of them interacting. Again, we got a lot of the backstory while they spoke to each other with the camera right in front of them.
Yes, about how they used to ride up and down the road when they were in the Indies together, thinking they were going to make it, and blah, blah, blah. Ah, goddamn, I've heard that before, too.
I forgot his name was Shane. Shane Strickland, they kept calling him there.
Because that means it's a shoot.
So now we're supposed to think that this hood was just left in the hallway by a sloppy devil's associate, I guess, right in front of the Mogul Embassy room, or it was a clue or a decoy. This is such a mystery. I'm glad the camera people are on it.
Are the AEW fans big on board games? Is this a game of Clue?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question.
Mr. Mustard in the drawing room with a candlestick?
Well, I don't know about Mr. Mustard or Mean Mr. Mustard, but it went on for too long. And, you know, the problem is I think, unfortunately, MJF's going to be there for a while. And I say unfortunate because much like I'm going to assume he heard from John Cena when he just saw him on the red carpet, or that he hears from any of these guys that he meets, I feel the same way. He should be in WWE.
Yeah.
At this point, it's getting into that, like, you know, by the end, we glamorized Sting staying in WCW forever, but there was a period there where it was like, well, he should have done something.
Yeah.
And MJF is getting dragged down by this company right now, and he's a bigger star than anyone they have there, and they're overexposing him in the wrong ways.
Yeah, trying to float all the other boats. He's putting holes in his hull. Aha! Ahoy, matey! See? I can top Tony and his pirate friend. Anyway, speaking of people who can't cut the mustard, Roderick Strong versus Commander. Seriously, Roddy finally gets to win a match. And it's not till after Commander almost killed him. Did you see the flip splash off the top where he landed on him?
His legs, yeah.
Jesus Christ. So Roddy beats this goof. And then Renee Moxley Good gets in the ring, and Roddy continues doing the goofy thing where he screams everybody's first name, Samoa! Renee! At his point, MJF is the devil. He's going to prove it. And I wrote, MJF is the devil, and this is the shits. Hey, Roddy, here's another, again, somebody you could have had on the card and deliver good matches and mean something in the middle, even and today is what I'm trying to say. And instead, it's just goofiness and it's wasted.
I think you could argue that AEW has been ruined by the devil.
Can we move along to the main event?
Yes, please.
They brought Jim Ross back for color in Oklahoma City, and he didn't even get an entrance on television. They came back from the break, and there's JR standing there at the desk. And his voice sounded good. Remember, he had been sounding rough there with that regular traveling schedule. But the point is, they've got a pop that people will react to. I'm not saying if it had been Des Moines, give JR an entrance, but it's Oklahoma City. But they had to get this fucking off-brand outlaw tournament match in. Jay White and John Moxley, the plumber and the sling blade or the switchblade or the gay blade or whatever the fuck he is. Zorro. Old Zorro White.
Did someone say blade?
There you go. No wonder Moxley wanted to work with him. Did you see that Moxley actually entered the arena from the hotel lobby built into the arena? He walked right past the elevators.
I did?
What the?
We never usually see him from that early on in his descent.
Well, no, it's because whatever building they're in, the lobby of the hotel opens right into the arena, and that's, I guess, the only place they could bring him in and shoot him. But so we were at the deal after all these other matches. If Moxley either drew with White or won, then we would get Swerve versus Moxley. And as I mentioned before, okay, even if the plumber's the worst wrestler in the world, a single match where somebody might stand a chance of getting over, especially if it's Swerve and they do the right thing and put him over. But if Jay White wins, it's a three-way final. And of course, then we knew from the start, because Tony can't help himself from fucking the final up too and making it a three-way garbage match instead of doing anything that might be productive for business. So we knew the finish. And Jay White is another guy that is, as I mentioned, substandard to Mark Briscoe in every aspect of the wrestling profession. But they've pushed him to the fucking moon. And they rang the bell with 13 minutes left in the show, and they were already talking about a run over. And to be honest, I zoned out on this because it's the plumber and Jay White, and who gives a shit. But sure enough, the DVR froze up again. They're getting their overruns approved in advance, apparently. They're just not bothering to tell the cable systems. What happened for you on this? Oh, and by the way, spoiler, Jay White won, so we get a three-way.
Right, which was the exact result you feared when they mentioned the stipulation for the first time earlier in the night.
Right.
I saw it live because we were recording today, so I got to see the finish. Jay White won. And my DVR also, when I went back to check, cut it off.
Yeah.
So...
like it's going to, if the cable companies don't know this is happening.
This is now 2 weeks in a row that...
I'm not bothered by missing any of this. I'm just reporting the facts. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This is 2 weeks in a row that Tony has tweeted out in advance that he has 5 extra minutes for the broadcast. Do you think it's been... do you think it's beneficial to keep doing this, or should they try to just fit it into a 2-hour broadcast?
Okay, well, making jokes about the overrun and nobody seeing it and the DVRs and the whole thing and Uncle Dave and nephew Brian having words about that, all that aside, it wasn't one of the arguments, well, if it's a real sport, real sports go over and we don't want to cut the matches short and they're 20-minute time. But the problem is, if the goddamn tournament match is the main event every week and every week the tournament match goes 5 minutes over, isn't that the same thing as being preposterous because it always ends on time? It's ending at the same time, just not even in time. So isn't that the same problem? right?
Yeah, and there's plenty of other stuff on the show to cut.
Yeah, sometime in the match right before the show goes off the air, and other times in the match, goddamn 6 or 7 minutes before the show goes off the air, and replay or come back with comments or shoot something that might be interesting to keep people's attention. But then you've done the same thing and haven't breached your 2-hour time commitment. Just a thought.
Well, that was AEW Dynamite, and as we are currently recording at this very second, the ratings are not in, but I'm sure they were spectacular.
I'm sure they were great.
All right, well, that didn't end the way I thought it would, but we are in the future. That was time travel for those keeping record. As was that.
Sorry, it's harder and harder for me to get out of this glass pod that we have to do the traveling in. I apologize. Well, are you going to tell the people why we traveled through time? We made it all that way, and we had to take a break because we couldn't leave the people, the cult of Cornette, our faithful listeners, all the way through the holidays. We knew they wouldn't be merry. We knew they wouldn't be jolly. We knew they wouldn't be happy or sleepy or dopey or doc or any of the other ones. We knew, unless they knew the ratings for that fiasco we described here a short time ago. So we took a break and we hopped through time, and now we have the ratings. The ratings, my good sir.
Once again, another big week of the Continental Classic, Jim. The ratings for AEW Dynamite.
By the way, who was it on Twitter that says a Continental Classic is something that it sounds like a hooker gives you behind a truck stop?
Oh, see, I saw breakfast on the road.
I saw that one too at a diner. Yeah.
Well, does it sound like a wrestling tournament? That is the question. AEW Dynamite on TBS, December 20th, 2023, on average, watched by 782,000 viewers.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. So they proved us wrong. They finally, after all this time, Brian, proved us wrong because we've been saying 800 and what thousand. They have the faithful there, the sick, the shut in, the people that are chained to a table, tied to a chair, cannot reach the remote, whatever the case. But now we've lost some of those. Was there any type of a plague or a mass extinction incident in any of the AEW hotbeds over the past week?
Yes, it's called the Continental Classic.
Okay.
Well, we began, and I do not have the Big Bang Theory numbers here. If we are able to get them, we will time travel once again, or we will not. We'll see. But quarter one, Jim?
I think the Big Bang Theory is all about time travel. Why can't we have their fucking numbers on time?
Well, these were compiled by WrestleNomics. Jim, quarter one, 8 to 8:15 p.m. Roosh versus Swerve Strickland with picture-in-picture, 964,000 viewers.
Okay, this does not bode well for their average. As starting at that level and having an average in the sevens. But continue on, my boy.
Quarter two, 8:15 to 8:30 p.m. The continuation of Roosh versus Swerve Strickland, a collision recap, an ad break, Chris Jericho's emotional backstage promo, and the start of Jay Lethal versus Mark Briscoe, 803,000 viewers.
Oh, good Lord. So, 161,000 people at the start of it say, fuck. All right.
Quarter three, 8:30 to 8:45 p.m. The continuation of Lethal versus Briscoe in the Continental Classic with picture-in-picture ads, the post-match, and MJF's video, 795,000 viewers.
Well, at least they slowed it down to a crawl on the viewer erosion and dropped another 8,000. Now that they gotta almost stay there somewhat, don't they, to even get to this average?
Well, we go to quarter four. 8:45 to 9 p.m. An ad break, the Wardlow video, the Samoa Joe MJF live promo, and attack by the Devil's many, many, many friends. The Orange Cassidy, Chris Statlander, Rocky Romero, Trent Beretta backstage angle. Whatever that was.
I think I zipped through that thinking it was a commercial for uterine repair.
779,000 viewers.
779,000. Well, that's another 16. Why are you laughing?
Because you hit me with it.
These fucking viewers are falling. They're dropping like flies. This is not anything to laugh about and make merriment over.
Well, we have the big 9 o'clock hour, and we call it the big 9 o'clock hour for a reason. Jim, the big 9 o'clock hour, quarter 5.
Didn't that involve Riho?
9 to 9:15 p.m. Saraya versus Riho with picture-in-picture.
You have a little rattle there. Apparently, you were not raised by a family of yodelers because you had a rattle in there. You didn't get the clear Riho.
I'm under the weather a little.
All right.
Where are we? Post-match.
You sound like you're under the tune.
Picture-in-picture with post-match and Tony Storm.
Yes, post-match. That should be somebody's fucking name.
Post-match?
Let's get 227 pounds from Des Moines, Iowa. Here he is, folks. Post-match.
Well, this quarter and the post-match in it did 782,000 viewers.
Oh, good gravy. Good gravy, mama.
Good gravy.
So they gained 3,000 viewers at the top of the all-important 9 o'clock hour by featuring Riho.
Well, we then go to quarter...
Oh, little lady.
Give me a Ricola. Can you do that?
Ricola.
We now go to quarter 6, 9:15 to 9:30 p.m. We're taking it real serious this week, folks. An ad break, MJF...
Well, that's going to put the butts in seats. The ad break.
MJF Samoa Joe backstage running into a mask on the floor, and MJF and Swerve Strickland's backstage talk, followed by Roderick Strong versus Commander, the start of it. 745,000 viewers.
Oh, so there went 37,000. We are now 219,000 down from where they started.
Well, we go to quarter 7, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. That red-hot Roderick Strong versus Commander match with picture-in-picture ads and Roddy Strong's live promo, followed by an ad break. 700,000 viewers.
Oh, good. Well, at least it's an even number. So we're now down 264,000. So what you're trying to tell me is by the math that I'm doing.
Well, what I'm saying is here comes the star power and the overrun.
I'm going to have to hit you here in a second with the how do we do the average of this again, because that's just rotten. Go ahead.
Well, here is quarter 8, Jim, and the overrun. In the Continental Classic, Jon Moxley versus Jay White, picture-in-picture ads, I should say at 9:45 to 10 p.m., 709,000 viewers, with a 5-minute overrun, and the post-match with Swerve Strickland coming out to say hello, 721,000 viewers.
So
the Big Bang Theory is giving them an artificial first quarter every single week, and we should just kind of look past that.
Yeah, well, and also, before we bury the lead here, the plumber and his cohort there, the main event of the evening, gained a whopping 9,000 viewers in a program that had lost. Well, if you talk about from quarter 2, they still lost almost 100. They'd lost over 100,000 until these yahoos came out, and then they picked up 9,000. And the overrun. What's the matter?
It's hysterical. I mean, more people watched Riho than Moxley versus Slingshot over there.
Slingshot.
In the last quarter.
Slingshot Jay White. That's it from now. Somebody write that down. Remind me of that later on. Yes, Riho beat The main event by 82,000 people and or 71,000, whatever the fuck. And again, last week, and then let's talk about the first quarter, but last week we said omit the overrun number because that's probably 10,000 people that fucking wandered in trying to find It's a Wonderful Life or whatever was airing after the goddamn program was over with. So taking out the 964,000 in the first quarter, how would we do this? And taking out the end of it, what would we would add 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, right? And get a total on that, and then find the percentage like you did on your goddamn deal before. Or what? No, that would be completely incorrect. We'd add these up and then we'd divide it, is what we do. Division. Division is the key, Brian.
All right, the 7 quarters minus the first quarter minus the overrun.
Yes.
Added up and divided by 7 is 759,000 viewers.
You did that already?
I was doing it while you were filibustering for a while there, buddy.
Oh, God damn. I was trying to figure out how to do it out loud. Hey, I thought I was doing great.
Can't do it for yourself. What is that? You can't do it to yourself.
I've been doing it to myself for years. So what was that then? What was that number of viewers?
759,000 viewers.
759,000. So that's the real number there instead of 782.
Yeah, it's like the ticket count at Wembley.
This is the turnstile count.
This is the turnstile viewers.
It's how many people actually came through the door. Like some other people were caught in there from the previous show. They hadn't exited yet. We can't count them. They had come to Wembley to see the Rolling Stones or whatever, and they just got lost in the bathroom and never found their way out yet.
The 3 biggest stars in AEW history are CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, and Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory.
Hey, how is that, by the way? I'm just thinking, would that be another way they could measure Wembley? Did we just stumble onto that? Next year, instead of doing the turnstile count on how many people come in, they fucking measure how many people leave.
That's funny. Yeah.
They could claim that as a record. More people left this wrestling show than have ever left another wrestling show ever.
You know, technically, you could say that about his Wembley show, probably. More people paid to leave. More people paid and left here than any other show ever.
Yes. Not only did more people pay to see it, but more people left it than any other wrestling show ever. They're not doing enough to maximize the news they're making and the records they're setting. They could have a whole new way of looking at this thing. So they've set a record.
I don't have the number in front of me, but for anyone saying, well, it's a tough time of year to draw a number, I think they did like 930-something thousand last year for their similar themed show this time of year, this week last year.
Yeah, well, that was Have a Holly Jolly Blade Job last year, their special, right after Winter is Blowing.
But for all the fans that are really into Japanese wrestling who wanted this here in the States, it's killing their numbers.
Wouldn't it, to be fair? It's not necessarily an indictment of the entire tournament system. It's just an indictment of the way Tony decided to do it. I mean, at some point with talent that is over and with issues and rivalries between them that have been maybe carrying on for a while, and then they're all 10, 12, however many are put in this fucking situation where they're going to wrestle a number of different rivals that they've had over the last 18 to 24 months. And one guy decides, well, I'll tell you what, if I get mathematically eliminated, I know I'm going to fuck so-and-so up in match 4 just so he can't go on. I don't care what happens. And you really put a lot of time and effort and attention into your 10 top guys competing in such a way that you don't have to completely blow somebody out of the goddamn water and beat them like a fucking rented mule every night and throw a couple of fucking assholes like I just described in there and make it babyface versus heel matches by the luck of the draw in the first round, and except for one of them in the fucking other time, and da, then you've got something. But this, no.
Yeah, 20-minute bangers with guys who lose every week isn't going to do it. Or with guys who would just appeal to what would classically be called newsletter readers. Not to say they're not talented in their own way, but how they're being presented, what's being presented, this tournament's a bomb, and then around it you have the devil running around turning off the lights to the point where when they have technical problems, you don't know if it's real or the devil.
And the only authority figures to stop it are Tony and his pirate friend.
Yeah, or Tony, his pirate friend, and Shivani to read the statements, like the fucking press officer from Iraq.
But he had a clothespin on his nose when he was doing it. He almost literally reached up and grabbed his nose into the fake disgust that he has, right? Oh, my God.
They're chasing away their audience. And for anyone who says, oh, well, people watch in different ways, really? Are they getting a big boost in their YouTube numbers? And by the way, where's the fucking follow-up for Christian Cage and Adam Copeland? The biggest two stars you could argue on this show for at least the last couple months, at least how they've been presented. Nothing.
Well, that was Tony's statement.
What?
He read it from Christian Cage because they didn't want to come to work on a holiday week. What the fuck? They're old and they deserve their rest.
Man,
I identify with that.
Is the audience going to be there when they come back? If things are falling apart, you got to ask people to maybe help out a little bit more. But yeah, I guess you also have to say to yourself, things are falling apart. You have to be able to recognize that. Not things are great, best shows we've ever done, everything's great. Who's bad faith arguing about AEW? AEW themselves or people like us?
There are no other people like us.
And I want to apologize to Jace Nakarado for any banging I'm doing as I talk about this. But I'm so fired up about these fucking...
See, I get this. I get all the time. I get, what are you banging on? What are you touching? What are you clumping? What are you clicking? What are you spitting about? What are you doing? When I get vehement and start rattling things and whatever, and now you're the one that's doing the goddamn speechifying on the desk.
But it's amazing there are still people who won't come out and just say, Tony's not good at this. Tony needs help. The people Tony has surrounded himself with are not the help. And Tony needs to stop listening to a lot of the people he's been listening to, whether they work there or not. Because look at what's going on.
Do you think it's because he's not listening to anybody or because he's listening to everybody at the same time?
At least when you had the Jelly Nutellas and all these people running around this show,
you knew not to listen to them.
It wasn't boring. It was never boring. It was never just like, I got to watch this. It didn't feel as dark. Half the matches on this show, I mean, it sounds like a silly thing. The ring's dark. The buildings are dark. This was the best lit building they've had in a while because they got a crowd there. The wrestlers were all wearing dark trunks. I said it before. It feels like NXT. Remember when it was NXT versus them? I always said it felt too dark. I mean, that was a really small room and they kept it dark.
Well, then they fixed that. They had the unicorn throw up on NXT. Who says they don't listen? But you got your way and they went too far.
Yeah, so AEW is this quiet, dark product now. I'm telling you, they've completely lost the plot and they barely had a hold of it from the beginning. And Cody held on to half of it. So I don't even know what to say anymore. But people are going to pretend that the solution is Tony needs to do this. Tony needs to get the fuck out of the way or just say, this is my hobby. Don't treat it seriously.
But if Tony gets out of the way, the problem is who he's going to hand off to because
bingo.
He's picked winners so far in almost every aspect of who he surrounds himself with or listens to or does business with to begin with or whatever. So, remember we always said can't get worse? Could it get worse?
Yes. Yes. The Bucks are not there right now. The Bucks can return. The Dark Order can be put all over this show. The Hardy Party, whatever the fuck that is, can show up and do whatever they do on this show. There are multiple people that drag this show down that they could insert at any time. But who can they insert in the show that brings the show up? MJF, although that's starting to fade because of how he's been used. Swerve. Let's see how he's used. Who else? Moxley's not drawing anyone anymore. Moxley was always one of their TV draws.
Yeah, but how often can you see that same that over and over? That's done.
Like, where are the hot angles? Where are the hot angles that get anyone interested in anyone beyond like, oh, I like the way they work? Like, there's never any, like, fucking, it's horrible. The show is horrible.
And a good blood feud.
Well, no, don't say that. Don't say that with Moxley. He'll take that to heart.
Well, you know what I mean. In the old manner of speaking, the blood feud, where I hate him deep down in my blood type of thing.
Where you could have matches that would make it so that it's so completely illogical for you to stop in the middle or at the end of the match and slow things down to trade things back and forth. You should hate the person you're wrestling and never want to give them that opportunity for any reason to prove anything to anyone.
Who, in all honesty, was MJF the last and maybe one of the only heels they've had where the people genuinely popped and got excited when the babyface made his comeback and was kicking the shit out of him? Rather than just, oh, we're cheering these moves now. No, get him, kick his ass, that type of thing.
Well, the answer is yes, but the other problem is who else has been a great heel like that? Like, even when Jericho was a heel, he was never a heel.
No, because he had the wonderful music and the people could sing and dance and gesticulate about. But that's what I'm saying, is that the whole logic universe of pro wrestling is built on, no matter how you get there, no matter who it is, no matter what they do, no matter how long it takes, weeks, months, years, one day, whatever the fuck it is, the ultimate thing about pro wrestling is the bad guy finally gets his ass kicked. And the people jump up and down and cheer when it happens and they've paid to see it. Everything else is negotiable, right? You can think of 5 million different things that have been done in wrestling, but what is the classic wrestling moment that everybody would see in their mind or remember, and or the payoff, the blow off, the goddamn big house, the end of the blood feud, whatever the case, the heel gets his ass kicked. That's what the goal of wrestling has been, no matter when and where it was presented. It's just how you get there. They can't get there. They cannot get there because there's nobody to get there on. Their heels are more popular than their baby faces. And so nobody is going to cheer any of those heels getting their ass kicked.
There's so much going on, and it can only go downhill from here.